Continuing on with the twos then, there's a sense with twos, if we take the botanical idea quite literally, from seed at the 1, seed at the ace, to fully grown, or even going back to seed or seed pod at the 10, the 2 is kind of like where the seed splits, where the seed opens up. And so that can kind of be reflected in the Papesse, the Papesse's book, opening up kind of like the seed. So we can draw an association there between the opening of the book or opening of a seed and the sense of twoness, which again would be appropriate for any of the twos, but here also perhaps is more appropriate with swords or wands. The sword association being not just in the symbolic sense of opening a book and learning and the mental aspect of swords, but even just the sense of a sword cutting things into two. And then the wands being somewhat about choice of action or conflict of action. Both are true in possibility, that with the knowledge of something, we are faced with more choices, more possibilities for action. And sometimes there's a conflict in that possibility, that we may have an option of two different paths, two different courses of action, and have to make a choice. And there may be a conflict in those two different courses of action that's within ourselves, but then there could also be two courses of action that collide. One course of action from one person, one course of action from another that collide. And in a sense, even just visually, the Popess has that as well in her crossed, I don't know what you would call those. They're probably straps that help hold her cloak on, but I forget what it's technically called. Anyway, we see this X here that is reflected in the 2 of Wands. And then that opening, though, is very much, it's almost like the Popess finds all this growth inside her book, inside the leaves of her book. You know, once that seed splits, it's kind of an explosion of possibility that opens up. And again, you know, we could find lots of different relationships between the 2 of Cups and the 2 of Coins with the Popess, but here also we kind of get a feeling that there's more similarity between the 2 of Coins and 2 of Cups with the Hanged One, the Hanged Man, than with the Popess. We've got this twoness, the 2 trees that he's suspended from, that very much reflect the 2 cups, and the dolphins and the floral stuff coming up is very much like him himself hanging. And even the plaque at the bottom that is typical of any 2 of Cups, or most 2 of Cups in a Tarot de Marseille, is giving us kind of information. That information is inversed. The head, in a sense, being the home of information. The head is down there below. So that's kind of interesting. And then I love this also in the Robledo deck, how he's used this lighter green with the 2 of Coins, and that reflects the lighter green in the 2 trees. So there's kind of a visual similarity there. And possibly being inversed, his pockets are upside down, maybe all his coins are falling out. And actually the pockets are even, one is, the flap is down, the other one, the flap is up. And so there's almost that sense of this lemniscate happening there. So that's kind of fun. And then at the same time, going back to that idea of seeds and the seed opening, when the seed splits, usually before or around the same time, close to the same time, not only does the seed kind of split open like a book, but the seed also splits down up and down. And so where the Papesse is upright and the Pendu is facing down. The Pendu is almost like the root digging down as the seed splits and opens up for growth above. So there's kind of that duality too. In Le Pendu, there's that duality just being inversed. There's a duality in him where he could be dancing upright, or he could be strung up. And so he's kind of, there's a reversal built into the upright, and then when the figure is upright, it's actually the card being reversed. So there's an uprightness built into the reversal of the card, which is a very interesting duality that is kind of shared actually between these three twos, right? Where we could invert that, and it's almost the same, very similar. And this kind of thing, this is not a general Marseille Tarot thing, but what I find somewhat fascinating just in this particular case, especially with that visual rhyme of the light green between the two of coins and the two trees, is 2011 there, the date on this edition, which very much is reflective of the 12, the inverse. So the two ones are like the two Roman ones that make two, and so there's a very twoness aspect to it. But that's just a unique little thing about this particular case. But that's what I've been kind of driving at through this whole series, is whenever you find visual rhymes, follow those, and they will be there even if any other source doesn't say, oh, look at this similarity, look at this I rhyme. If you find an I rhyme in something, in any random combination of cards, if you find an I rhyme in something, it will be significant. It will be significant to your study of that particular deck, and if it comes up in a reading, it will be significant in that reading. So very, very, very important to keep looking for those visual rhymes, and then finding, not only in the visual rhymes, finding similarities in their meaning, the resulting meaning. So twos being about duality, choice, two ways to view the world, upright and upside down. In some ways, the Pendu, in terms of looking at the major arcana as a continuum, as a journey, in many ways, the Pendu is the moment when the Fool on his journey starts to see the world in a different way, starts to see a broader aspect of duality, that there's not only all these different ways that he can see the world, or she, but that there are indeed other perspectives that are outside of his own experience up until that point. Anyway, lots of there's always layers and layers and layers to think about. It's fun.